Chapter 4 Phantoms. As the sun sank below the horizon, the moon's pale light began to shine through from behind the clouds. Kyle and Katie couldn't help but shiver in the cold moonlight, whilst Max trotted along behind them. The pair weren't allowed to stop, though. They were still being hurried on by Blitzen, Barry, Peter and Idris as they crossed the vast, cold desert. "Couldn't we have stopped the night?" Kyle asked. "Yes," Peter replied. "We could have stopped. We could have had a nice warm meal and soft beds to lay in," he continued. "You tell me if we should have stopped when we get there, though," Peter replied sarcastically. "The king thought it was important enough that he left immediately," Blitzen said. "Therefore, so have we," Blitzen told them. "But don't worry, there is a place not too far from here where we can stop for a little while," Blitzen continued. Kyle kept protesting until Katie couldn't stand it any more. She clouted him around the head hard. "Will you be quiet?" she shouted at him. He quickly stopped what he was doing. The desert was pretty empty, but as they kept walking, a large rocky outcrop sped closer and closer. The rock formation looked like 3 fingers reaching through the sand. When they came closer, Katie and Carl both realized that there was a cave within the rock. "Here we are, children," Blitzen said. "Now inside, quickly, and get comfy," he told them. "Barry, get a fire going with Peter, would you? And I'll sit on watch with Idris," Blitzen said as they approached the entrance to the cave. Suddenly, a large black cloud of smoke flew across the sky, heading in out of the darkness. The smoke twisted, but held the form of a torso with a head and arms. In an excited state, the dark creature fluttered between Blitzen and Idris before it moved towards the children. Barry and Peter quickly stepped in between, and then the spiralling dark cloud quickly shot off into the night and disappeared into the darkness. "What in the world was that?" Kyle asked. "We've seen something similar before," Katie added. The others looked on in shock. "It looked like a phantom, but I'm not sure," Blitzen replied quietly. "I think it might have something to do with the darkness that the king was talking about," Blitzen told them, a little more flustered than he was a few moments ago. The group had an uneasy night, struggling to get much sleep whilst the animals around them made noises in the darkness. Katie and Kyle weren't even sure if some of the noises were animals. Their imaginations ran wild after seeing the phantom for a second time. Max had gone to the edge of the cave and barked into the darkness more than once, returning to the children's side when he was adequately satisfied that they were safe. It was early morning by the time that any of them had fallen asleep, but they didn't sleep long. Just as the sun was rising, 3 lions came roaring into the local vicinity before Blitzen greeted the 3 princely brothers. Then the group of 8 sat out basking in the early morning sun, whilst Barry cooked breakfast for the large group. "Liana told us of the human children. We came as soon as we could," the youngest and smallest of the 3 male lions told them. "The king will be waiting for us," Blitzen replied. "We cannot waste time. I hate to say it, but we're going to have to take a shortcut through the mangroves," he continued. The 3 lion brothers looked at him distastefully. "You know we hate water," the largest of the lions replied. "My older brother Oscar is correct. We would rather not," purred the second eldest of the three. "Tough break then, Ozzy," Blitzen replied to the young lion. "You should have thought of that when your father left. Now you will have to follow our lead," Barry told them assertively. The 3 lions didn't seem pleased by the proposition, but they bowed graciously. "Very well, the mangroves will cut a day off our travel time, but the crocs and sharks will be a serious problem," the eldest lion, Oscar, purred. "And that is why you're here to help. The children must make it to the king alive. Of this I'm sure, and the king needs all of our help to accomplish something," Blitzen told them. "The king never needs our help," the 3 lions replied almost in unison. "He needs you now more than ever, Oscar, Ozzy, and even you, Oliver," Peter told the 3 brothers. Who would we be if we were to let him face this darkness alone? Barry said. He is a good king. He knew he had to act, and he had faith that we would act too, Blitzen told them. We should probably get going, right? Kyle asked as he looked at his wrist, pretending to check the time. Katie laughed, but the others didn't get it. Kyle is right, though. Let's get going, Idris said, shuffling his wings. The group had set off early and had made good progress across the last section of the desert. With Idris's help, they navigated the tall dunes, soon finding a river that winded past them. It was narrow and slow at first, but after a short distance it grew wider and faster, splitting directions more than once. The lush green jungle rose up around the many rivers that flowed down through the valley. The verdant canopy high above them swayed in the wind, blocking most of the harsh midday sun. If we are going to do this, we do it our way, Oscar told them assertively, leading their group down towards one of the many rivers that flowed into the mangroves, before following it downstream for a short while. At the edge of the mighty river was a small hut. As soon as the three lions crossed the threshold, they morphed into muscular young men, wearing only small loincloths. Katie quickly blushed bright red. You had better hold on tight when you're on board, Oscar told them, before he and his brothers lowered a raft from the roof of the hut, smiling as they carried the craft between them. There's only one way to travel this river, and that's whitewater rafting, Oliver, the smallest lion, said excitedly. The three brothers lowered the boat into the water, and as the waters rippled outwards, things moved in the deeper water around them. Climb in, the three brothers said, laughing between themselves as they held the boat steady. Neither Barry nor Blitzen were looking forward to the ordeal, but Kyle and Max were already in the boat, excitedly urging the others to get in as well. The boat pushed away from the dock, and slowly they paddled downstream. Well, this isn't much fun, Kyle said, as they rounded the fifth turn in the river. The three brothers just laughed. Just you wait, Ozzy said, smirking at Kyle. The boat rounded the next corner, where a second river flowed into the same channel. The river began to descend quicker, and the sides of the gorge rose around them. The waters began to bubble, churning and frothing in the turbulence. Soon Kyle and the others were holding on for dear life. The boat tipped and rocked from side to side, whilst the river continually pushed them on faster and faster. They were going at such a pace that Kyle's stomach could barely keep up. He was feeling sick and getting paler by the second. The brothers continued to laugh as they skillfully steered the boat along the hazardous river. "Don't let go. This is the worst part," someone shouted as Kyle felt his stomach leap. The boat slid over the top of a waterfall and dropped, falling more than 10 feet before landing and bouncing on the surface of the lake below. Kyle felt so sick he couldn't contain it any more, leaning out over the side of the boat, throwing up whilst his sister held him from behind. The three brothers continued rowing along the calming waters. Soon the mangroves began to spring up around them. Tangled roots and branches lined the edges of the rivers and channels. The boat clunked off something more than once in the narrow confines of the channels. Birds fluttered from tree to tree as they sang playfully in the treetops, and bubbles rose from the river, the only proof that something was below them in the murky water. "This doesn't seem too bad," Kyle said, now over the worst of his sickness. "I don't know what you were worried about," he laughed. Suddenly something splashed amongst the roots in the mangroves, and a large scaly back swam up alongside the boat. Several more of the large freshwater crocodiles appeared, bumping their craft slightly before disappearing back below the water. Katie screamed as soon as she saw the crocodile, the birds quickly scattering from the trees around them, blocking the sun's light for a few seconds before reappearing once again only a few moments later.